What are early signs of an abusive partner? Being criticized when doing the right thing. Loaded the dishwasher, yet didn't get the dishes stacked quite right. Vacuumed, but at the wrong time. Cooked breakfast for someone else. But, really, who does eggs that way? Watch out for that. Selfishness not being centered in self and balanced. I mean they think about their needs being met and are not concerned with your needs. When your friends, family or strangers don't like them or vice versa. I realized he was awful to me when I was scared to introduce him to my friends from school. I just knew they weren't going to get along. I didn't like the way his actions reflected into me. I also never invited him to hang out with family because he embarrassed me. I justified it because we were mostly fine alone. It was only when I saw how other people reacted to the way he talked to me and treated me, that I understood what was wrong. Highly manipulative. When they accuse you of doing things you aren't doing. When they are the ones doing those things. When they do something, completely deny doing it, and make you seem crazy when questioning them about it. They have a complete lack of empathy or remorse for their behavior and actions, usually never apologize for anything, will literally argue with you, provoke you, and agitate you, and will act like they have no idea why you are sad or upset, yells at you, calls you names, gives you the silent treatment, the good old drive, Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality, lies, promises you the world, delivers nothing but shit, uses your love for them to get what they want along with fear, guilt, confusion, etc. Oh, I could go on and on and on. My ex was extremely emotionally abusive. It f***ed me up and he had me trapped. The day I had found enough strength and courage to leave his sorry, miserable ass was by far one of the best days of my life. 6 years of pure, manipulative shit. Proud to say today I am happier than I ever imagined I ever could be. Going to give y'all a pretty prime example of his behavior. We lived together in an apartment out in the South USA at the time. I come home from work one day to see that my ex has found a stray, and basically rabid, dog, and he wants to keep it. I tell him that I am uncomfortable keeping this dog because A, we already had a dog that was more than enough. B, we were shit poor at the time and could barely afford to feed ourselves and our dog. C, this dog was clearly dangerous. Well, he had the biggest meltdown I have ever seen. Screamed, and I mean screamed, in my face. Told me what a heartless bitch I was. Told me that I don't make the decisions here. And sealed it off with a very loving go yourself. He walked away with the dog. I spent about 4 hours crying waiting for him to return. Once he finally showed back up, he bust into the bedroom and said, "We are keeping the dog, and if you don't like it you can leave." This was actually choosing a random dog over me. We were years into abuse at this point, so my fragile, weak self obliged to his demands. The next day, this dog attacks our small and almost kills her. Rushed her to the emergency vet, and while we were in the waiting room he says, "This wouldn't have happened if you were watching the dogs properly." Yup. He actually said it was my fault. And what did I say? I said sorry. He didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. Him. I can only hope karma is doing her job well. If you feel like you have to put your own interests on the back burner in favor of theirs. If you feel guilty for doing something harmless and innocent that you normally like to do, just because you're afraid that they won't approve of it. If you offend them, it's your fault because you're an asshole. But if they offend you, it's also your fault because you're sensitive. Controlling, making it seem you're at fault, being emotional, pulling you away from friends and your social life, getting easily angry, constantly questioning your whereabouts. There are many signs, red flags and gut feelings, trust it. Guilt. Guilt everywhere, for every little thing, vastly out of proportion to how serious the issue is or how easily it can be fixed. Left the butter out of the fridge. Turned up 5 minutes late for something. Dinner was a bit longer than expected, or a bit burned. Well, that's the thin end of the wedge, just a little crevice that can be widened over time, until you start doubting your every action because, contrary to what you might expect, there'll always be something they can latch onto no matter how careful you are. Can't you see all the things your partner does for you? Is it really too much to ask that you don't up this one little thing? Really? Or is that beyond you? Honestly, why would anyone else put up with you if you can't even get that right? Very few abusive relationships start with loose fists. First comes the general breaking down of your self-esteem until you feel like you deserve it, because that's when they know you won't fight back or leave. Leaving a social event to go home because you know you have to and dreading coming home, though really that can apply to lots of situations. Narcissism. A narcissist's prayer. That didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it. When they try to prevent you from hanging out or even talking to your friends and family, a lot of abusers get away with their behavior, because they isolate their victims from people who would be able to support and protect them, and therefore make them completely dependent. Reading this thread is making me realize that I exhibit some of these behaviors, but I don't want to. I love the people I'm with, but I can definitely be passive-aggressive and needy. I don't want to abuse the people I want to make happy. I can let it go this time. Have you heard this? Controlling behavior, always assuming control, and undermining your ability to do anything yourself. This can't be done quite subtly at first, with an air of pretended concern. You cannot have a good time with your friends. They emotionally blackmail you into bringing them along and then sulk all the time, making you choose between friends and so. Slowly you will lose touch with your friends and family, and your world is only your circle. You can't question their opinions. You know, I came to this thread because I'm in a new relationship and have very little experience, so I figured it would be good to learn the warning signs. I didn't expect to see a list of things my dad's been doing for years. People talk about control, and that's a big thing. The control, the isolation, the constant contact, but those usually happen slowly. They learn your boundaries, your comfort zones, and they nudge you out of them a step at a time until you're putting up with things that you would never have tolerated. For the first month or two, the biggest warning sign that I can think of is when things move too fast. Like, scary fast. Like, you're not sure how you're feeling except that you're excited and a little off balance. There are lots of important relationship milestones, and if they're all coming together before you can really settle in and adjust, it could be that you're being kept off balance on purpose. Pushing the relationship to the next level while you're still emotionally dizzy from reaching the previous level keeps you feeling excited about the other person. You get caught up in the crazy momentum. Nobody's made you feel this way before. You aren't thinking clearly. There's no time for a foundation of trust and partnership. You feel wanted. You feel needed. And you're seeing them on their absolute best behavior to set the hook in your jaw and reel you in. Sex by itself isn't really a big milestone. Usually, dating culture has evolved enough that a lot of the preliminary compatibility discussions happen remotely, before the couple meets in person, and sex on the first date can still result in a long-term happy and successful relationship. I'm talking more like the I love you exchange, the family introduction, the cohabitation stage, the taking vacations together stage. I think one thing that sticks out with a past abusive partner that I was afraid of him going through my phone. Not because I was hiding anything, but because when he did he always found something to get mad about. Also, he could go through my phone anytime he wanted, but I never got more than a glance at the lock screen of his own. He also wanted me to install a tracking app within less of a month of us beginning to date. The feeling of walking on eggshells and going out of your way to make sure you don't do anything they don't like. When you start hiding menial things like eating without them because of the fit they will throw. They won't take no for an answer when you don't want to do something. They may not become immediately abusive, but will try to coerce you into doing what they want no matter how many times you say you're not really into it at the moment. Then, if you absolutely refuse, they sulk or get really passive-aggressive. When you say you're in some kind of discomfort, distress, and they either couldn't care less or dismiss it saying you're imagining it. Psychoanalyses your behavior, says she knows what's best for you because you don't know that on your own. Thinks they're funny but every joke is belittling you. Not just on one or two of your characteristics but every aspect of yourself is up for grabs and inferior. Talks early about how their exes are crazy. Alternately infantilizes you and expects you to be their caretaker. Gaslighting. Somehow, everything is always your fault and never theirs. and they'll beat you so much with their version of the truth. You start to believe it. They will belittle your argument or dismiss it. Showing up where you are uninvited. Extreme clingy where you can't really do anything on your own. Also turning tables on you when you actually have a problem with something. Somehow make you feel bad when you shouldn't feel bad. Another one to look out for is that person showing up at your work causing some sort of issue when it could be as easy as calling your job if it was very important. Waiting until you get home or during your breaks. I know some people who had to deal with their partner blowing up their phones going crazy when they are working etc. over the smallest thing. Example, didn't take out the trash before work. It's just not acceptable. Also your partner trying to get you away from your friends and family when there's nothing really wrong. Like they somehow find some way to get you to turn against them.